I have multiple bodies, but I'm not going to take it apart. I do want to be able to apply different materials to it, right? But I don't want to be able to move it around or move pieces separately. So with bodies, I can have different physical materials as part of that body. But I can't give individual part numbers or things like that. What else can be within a component? So I can have bodies within components. What else can I have? Yeah, so the component can have other sketches. So you can see it's a component here and it has sketches. But I can also make a new component over here and then extrude it as a component. If I activate that component, look down here at the top, at the bottom. I get things that were used for making that component. So right now, I only have the extrude because the body was made, or the sketch was made where? In the parent component. So the sketch was there, right? So one thing we haven't done yet is if I just make a new component, just make a blank component, activate it. So I'm just gonna call this box 1. He makes it, activates it, and now if I create a sketch, and I extrude it, and I'm extruding it as just the body because I already have the container of the component, right? So I can just make this a body now. Let's check. I've never tried it. Let's try it. So, but now you can see that within this component, it has a sketch and the body, or and the extrude, right? So it's a kind of a way I can organize my stuff instead of having to look at the entire timeline, because the parent timeline is going to show me every single step has been taken on this whole design. So if I've got 5 parts, 15 parts, it's going to see all of that stuff. And so this thing can get pretty long. And so, but if you activate your component, then you can keep track of what's going on there. So let's try that try doing one here. So I'm going to make a sketch. That. Extrude it as a new component. So there's my sketch 3 here. Let's see, can I drag that into there? Yep. Now that sketch is there. If I activate this component, that's there. So yes, you can drag your sketch into that component later on to help you organize things. Okay. Can you copy a sketch? What do you guys think? Yes, you can copy a sketch. Would you want to copy a sketch? Probably not, because watch what happens. Oh, also, this is why I don't like using physical materials or changing the appearance of things, because I can't see the surface versus the edges of this piece. See that? Compared to these ones that have nice contrast. So I'm going to do over here. I'm going to create a sketch here. I'm going to keep it simple. Single rectangle there. And see, if I finish that, I copy this one. So I can't copy the entire sketch itself, but I could go into the sketch, select everything, copy, finish, create a new sketch over here, and paste. Let's see, it's all over here, and I have to remove it, and I have to try and realign stuff. Imagine if this was a complicated sketch. All of those dimensions and constraints or anything would be, so let's say I've got this, and I actually did a good job of this. So let's, align that midline, add that dimension there. Here. I have all that. Great. I just want that box. No matter how complex, then it was more complex. I copy that, finish, go over here, I paste it. Oh, it's over there. But now I don't need this line. I'm gonna take that off. that dimension went away. And I still have to reconstrain it, redimension it, and all that stuff. And so, and that one came in lined up right. Sometimes they come in twisted or mirrored, or depending on what the orientation of that plane is. That one came here, not on this side. So you'd think that same thing would stay on that left side, but no, it went all the way to this side. So in reality, not really a thing. And some people ask about that when they make real big complicated sketches, because like they did it on the wrong side and they want to move it. You can also do that. So if I make like, oh, I sketched it here, but I really want it on this side, I can go on it and say redefine sketch plane and pick this side. But look where I put it. So now I have to go back in at that sketch. So green lines mean that it was relying on geometry that's not there now. It was from another sketch. It's just, I copied that, the stuff is no longer there. And so I can't really use that at all. So I just have to delete all those lines, and then so I'm back to this. And so a lot of people will do this when they try and do big, complicated sketches. They don't want to realize they messed up and don't want to have to do everything again. This is part of why I say keep your sketches simple. If you're doing simple sketches, it's faster just to make a new sketch than it is to try and copy and paste and rescale and redo everything, right? If you've only got 6 pieces of geometry, just redo it. Don't waste the time trying to copy and re-constrain everything, and it just makes much more of a hassle than keeping it simple. Yeah. So that's kind of the emphasis behind why I went to using simple sketches, because I had to do that. Like, oh, I need to fix this, and this is a big thing, and I have to redo 50 steps it took an hour to do. No, it's easier to redo a bunch of little stuff than something big and complex. Does that make sense? To let you see my reasoning for why I've been telling you the things I've been telling you. So, any other questions within this? Yeah. Maybe. So, like, if I wanted the same cut, on here going that way. If I went on the left side, then I might be able to create something in the middle and do a circular pattern.
Oh.
Okay. It depends on the dimensions of this thing, but I could do that, and because if this line is longer than this thing, it might be over here though, right? So yeah. The square, you can do it. If you want to go to the opposite side, circular pattern always works. But going to this side, on the same edge, probably not going to work. Probably just need to redo it. But that's where we might want to use a parameter, right? Because if I tell it, or even I just call the number. So if I look at this, that's D11, right? So if I want to make one that's exactly the same on this side, so let's say I cut this one out. Now I want one the same depth over here. I can just create a sketch here. Again, draw from a rectangle, and then just project that line, right? Snap to the top of the line, snap to the bottom of the line. That way my height is locked. When I dimension here, just call out my D11. So it's using that same measurement that I've typed in earlier on D11. And then I can cut that way. Now, no matter what size, of course, what did I do wrong there? Yeah, I didn't tell it to go all the way through, right? I should have made that go either all the way. Uh-oh. Probably don't want that. Probably want to go 2, just pick
whatever.
There. So that's one thing when you're working with more than one component. You want to maybe not do all the time. So now you go through everything. But I could also tell it all. And then under objects to cut, I could tell it, yes, cut that one, or no, don't cut that one.
Oh, rather than going through the distance.
But telling to go to something is usually a better way. So I can do that, and now I can go back in and edit that dimension. And I could also go to my parameters and which was that? The 11 right here. Change that to be 0.5. Now both those change. But if I know that I'm going to do that ahead of time, what should I do? Make a parameter. Depth. 0.375. And now I can call this out to be depth. Now there we go. Now I can just control it from that named parameter. What? Yeah. Yeah, we'll do some more kind of structured parameter work in 2 weeks. And going deeper unit, that's where we're going to do more parameters as well as nested components. So more where we have components within components. So sub-assemblies of things you can reuse. But you can always play with them yourself. So on any of your models, if you're doing it, you see the dimensions on the drawing. Think about, is this thing symmetric? Where does my origin need to be? How might I need to mirror? What patterns might I need to use? What constraints do I want to use? And what things can I preset as parameters that'll make it easy to change? What are things that might change, that are the most likely to change on this part? Because sometimes, when I was making these, the overall size, I knew that this angle was going to change because I needed to get from this one to this one, right? 2 degree to 10 degrees. So I knew that angle was going to change. Easy thing, parameter size. The size of these little pieces here, those I might need to adjust. Might as well make those a parameter so it's easy to adjust those things. Spacing I knew was pretty good. The overall size of this, really not a big deal. Don't need to make those parameters. But things that I might want to change and make it easy to change, make them as parameters. So kind of have that as part of your planning process. And so just kind of have your little checklist. I should actually make that into a checklist for you guys, huh?
That would be.
So I'll make it into a checklist for you guys of the things to think about when you open a model. So I'll work on that for you guys. But that kind of in your mental checklist of metric, where should my origin be? Am I using patterns? What kind of features do I want? What things might I change and should I make as parameters? Okay. And parameters are really good in assemblies because now I can have that one parameter affect features on different parts. Because maybe I want, the depth is here, but I want a piece that's going to slide into here, and I want it to be a little bit of clearance. And so maybe I can make a parameter called clearance. I'm going to make it 30-second. Now I create a sketch here. And I can offset that by clearance. Right? Now I can just do this piece. There's my clearance. So kind of getting back to that question last week on how would you do it? How would you make one part lined up with another part? Create it from that part, right? Project your features from one part onto a sketch on another part. Now if I want to change that clearance, I can just go back in my parameter. And I decided, oh no, it really needs to be 0.02. I can make the change. It makes the change. Okay. So any other questions? So bodies, components. It's starting to make sense a little bit more now. And then the other thing that we're going to work on this week or today, actually, I'm going to let you guys work on the components from bodies first for a little while. So I think most people are done with the joints and the assembly template. So on bodies components, you're going to go through and do these things. So you're going to make just some bodies, and then just make 2 bodies out of start, and then you're going to do 2 different ways to turn those into components. One is by just using the right click, create component for body. And another one is creating a new component, like I just showed you guys, and then just dragging the body down into that component. Both ways work. And then we'll go into creating just a component. We've done this before. We've been doing this the whole time. Well, then we'll activate the component and make changes within the component. You can see how it stores the sketches, and we even make a construction feature here. It kind of stores all that within the component. We put a hole in from the side and like that. And we'll go into copying components like we talked about on Monday, using patterns. But anytime that I want more than 1 copy of a component, I'll just make a pattern. I'll just make a rectangular pattern. That way I can make 3 to 5, to 50 copies all at once. When you make a pattern, though, it doesn't keep your joints, right? And so then I go into mirroring. If you want a left and right hand version, mirror images. But if you want the same thing, just copy it, right? Even if you're going to have it go the opposite direction, don't mirror it to the other side if it's going to be exactly the same. So like the snowboard rack, right? We want 2 of them right next to each other for that, and then we want 2 more further away. Why don't we want to use mirror to make the other one? Because it's going to make it lined up right with it, but why wouldn't we want to use mirror? I don't look the same direction. Let's snowboard rack. So here I made a pattern to make the second one. And if I pattern components, make sure you always pick components when you're working with your components. You're not grabbing bodies by accident. Then you can actually move the bodies within the components, and then things don't kind of work out right. So I have that. So I have 4 copies of this rack. That. Save it. I create a drawing, just assembly only. Okay. So look at my parts list. It tells me rack. I have 1 item, but I have 4 of those 1 items, right? Watch what happens if I do a mirror component. I save that. Can you guys already see what's happening? Now look at my parts list. Now each one of those is a separate component. Because the mirror makes another component, but they're exactly the same, right? So just copy it. That keeps your parts list looking nicer. You're gonna have 4 of these things because that's what you want. You want 4. You have the file. You cut 4 of those. You stack them up, right? You're not gonna make 4 different cut files for them, which is what this is telling the people. Like you're gonna need 4 different versions. Like they're looking at them like, what's different between these now? Why do we have 4 of these and not just 1 item that has a quantity of 4? So that's why we want to copy things if it's exactly the same. So a lot of times, like something's going from this direction, you have another one in this direction. Don't do this one and then mirror it across. Do have 1 screw over here, mirror it to the other side. So now you have a different screw. You're not reusing the same one. Just use the copy or the duplicate with joints, right? Grab the other side. And sometimes when you do that, things go kind of wonky, right? Let's grab one of these. So if I go into joints, duplicate with joints, I'm gonna grab this screw here. I'm gonna grab that hole there, and that one went fine. That one went fine. Great. it worked for me. Sometimes one will go fine, the other one will flip backwards. Just remember there's the little 3 dots here. Just click that. It's going to list each one of those items, and for each one, you can individually flip it in or out. So when you're using a joint, go in. If one's going the wrong way, just go through the list, see which one highlights, and then flip it. Also, when you're doing your other joints, so if I'm going to do a joint, why do those all just gray out? No, look up here. Those are the bodies. I can't add joints to bodies. I can only add joints to components.
That's why.
And so, let's say, but if I want to add this one to there, I pick center there and I pick the center there, sometimes it's going to flip it this way, sometimes it's going to go the same direction. I have not been able to find something that tells it which way it's going to go automatically. I think it might be also related to what you did the last time you used joint. But always be prepared to flip direction if you need to, because it happens. You might have to flip direction. Or if I go here, look, these are visible now. But once I pick the first thing, these are visible. Why? Why are these visible now, not at the initial snap? Yeah, because the first snap has to be something that's not grounded, right? These are all part of the top level component. So those are stuck where they are. They can't move. The first thing is what's going to move. But these are already stuck there, but they're bodies in that main component. So now I can snap that to these, right? So I can tell it to go there. And okay. And it goes there. But you also might need to rotate things, right? So when you pick your joint snaps, you have the circle. The circles are going to line up on top of each other. Maybe go in the same direction, maybe go in opposite directions. But you can always rotate around that circle. And you might need to flip, right? Depending on how you want it to line up. So if it comes in, as long as you make sure that you pick the right 2 things and you have the circles going the right directions, don't worry about flipping it or rotating it. That happens. Just be prepared to do that on every single joint. Sometimes you'll get lucky and it'll come in perfect. Sometimes you have to do just a flip. Sometimes you have to do a flip and a rotation. Sometimes you have just a rotation. Just figure out what it is for that. Also, when you're doing your joint, remember, if you're on the face, it's going to be lined up with the face. The circle is going to be lined up on the face, right? I can go get close to one of the snaps, don't jump to it. If I just click on it, now I can just move around without holding the button to find the nearest one that I want. This is good if there's a hole in the middle. I want to snap to the middle of the hole, right? If I do it and I'm on an edge, it lines it up with the circle perpendicular to the edge. Okay. So same thing, I can pick anywhere along the edge. Now I can place it on it. So based on this corner, I have a few different ways to do it, right? I can make it on the face there. If I put it on this edge there also, get it close enough, I can have it go the same direction. I can have it here or on this edge and have it the same direction. I can have it here or on this edge and be the same direction. If you pick the face and the edge that's 90 degrees to it, either one I'll give it to you. Some people like picking on the faces better. Some people like picking the edges better. For most time, as long as you get it facing the right direction there, doesn't matter if you picked it on the face or the edge. Okay? As long as you get the right direction out of it. The only thing is, like, even here in the middle, I can have it facing this way, or that way, just by moving the mouse a little bit between the face, the edge, and the top. I'm rotating it different directions. So just be careful how you're doing that. And if you need to, zoom in, right? Don't stay zoomed out all the time. But also don't stay zoomed in all the time, because then you can't see the rest of the part. So zoom out when you need to see things, zoom back in to do detail work. Get comfortable, make sure you're comfortable with that transition of near to far, and working at the right level of zoom for what you're doing. Okay? Does it make sense? Something like this, don't really, if I'm zoomed in this far, it's the same as if I'm zoomed this far, right? I just don't want to be out here where I can't really get to the difference. So it's always that little in between, figuring out what works for you. Okay? Any other questions? No? All right, so work on the bodies and components. Activity now? Yep, what, Steven?
With the edges,
Yep.
you have to click access before clicking on the edge, or
Just when you're doing the joint, if you're on the edge anywhere, it's going to be perpendicular to that edge. So work on the bodies and components now, so take a break, kind of the next few minutes, take a 10-minute break or so, and then I'll let you guys work until noon on bodies and components, and then we'll talk about joint origins.
Recorded, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.